is John and you're watching Soul and Code. Today I wanted to talk about referrals and how to get referrals because getting a referral is actually one of the best ways to land your first software engineering job. So before I move on a little bit too much, I quickly want to talk about what is a referral? Just so that everyone's on the same page, what exactly is a referral? A referral is essentially when a company asks their employees, hey, do you guys know anyone? If you do, refer them to the company. So I could recommend one of my friends to come work at Capital One, for example. So why would anyone do this? Well, there's an obvious incentive of money. For example, any company that does a referral, it's really dependent on the company and the type of roles that you're referring to, the position that you're trying to fill. But at least for software engineers, I know that a lot of companies will go anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000, 10,000, or even 30,000 or even more. Based on how difficult that job is to backfill, that's how much they'll give you. Some companies kind of have a blanket amount, but generally it's pretty good for referral bonuses. But the other benefit, the other obvious one is if you know someone and you work with them before and you would love to have them on your team and you also want to see them succeed and you want to work with people that you know and that are very good at what they do. So yeah, those are the obvious choices, obvious reasons why people would do a referral. So that's kind of the reasons why a current employee at a company that you want to work for would refer you. But why would you want to get a referral? Why don't you just send in your resume, right? It's mainly due to how companies operate, right? When let's say that a company hires you, they've gone through a bunch of steps to vet you to make sure that you're a normal person, that you also have the skills that you say you are, you have the right character, and they're essentially leveraging that trust that they have on you to refer them a candidate that's of similar quality as you. So some of the numbers that I've read, it takes anywhere between $30,000 to $50,000 of resources to find and hire a good candidate. And that, what I mean by that is the time that the recruiter has to spend reaching out to a bunch of people, filtering out a bunch of people, bringing people in, interviewing them, and then rejecting them, all the engineers' times that are spent interviewing this person. So in reality, to hire someone in this industry is actually really difficult, especially because the market is so crazy right now. There's definitely a lack of experienced engineers. So even now, every day, not just me, but most engineers with at least 2 years of experience at some reputable company will get essentially hounded on LinkedIn, for example. You'll get an email almost every day saying, hey, I'm at this company, I'm at this YC company, we're funded X, and we would love to chat with you regarding future opportunities. So it's a really exciting field to be in. But yeah, so basically, it's really valuable, getting a referral. So if you get a referral from someone, essentially you cut in line. Let's say there's an open rec and you know the hiring manager there, and you say, hey, I know the perfect guy, and that hiring manager knows you personally and likes your work. They'll be hey, just bring him in. And I'll interview him right away. Basically, a referral is basically fast tracking your way to that first interview. But yeah, enough talking about the merits of a referral, because honestly, if you do any amount of research, you'll find that getting a referral is so much better than going just blind just shooting out resumes, right? So onto the tips, I guess. I like to think about this stage pretty strategically when at least when I did it. I'll tell you what I did to get my job, and I got my job pretty quickly. So I think my strategies definitely speak for themselves, hopefully. But yeah, let me know in the comments below if you actually use some of these tips and then it works out for you. So I like to think of the whole referral process in three like kind of succinct steps. Like the first step is like getting ready to like book that first meeting, right? Like getting, essentially you're finding, like, it's weird to say it like this, but you're finding a lead, and then you're kind of like executing like your sales pitch to them, right? So that's like the first step. The second step is like, how do you like actually like make the sale, in a sense. I keep saying like sale, like it's like, it sounds super shady when I say it like this, but it's essentially you're selling yourself.
A, B, C. A, always B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing.
Step number two is like, what do you do and what do you talk about during like your actual meeting? Because that's like super important on actually getting the referral. And then step three is like, you know, tidying up, like following up, like what do you do afterwards and what should you expect, like those kind of things. So that's kind of like the three steps, and let me like break it down a little bit more. Step one, like I said, is like booking the interview. So above all, like some people will say that, hey, you started to learn how to program a few months, I think your resume is good enough, go ahead and start like applying and like reaching out to people. My advice is a little different. I feel like you're wasting a lot of time if your portfolio is not at a certain level. And what I mean by that is like, sure, like let's take a step back and say, like look at your competition. Like let's say that you want to work at any like Fortune 500 company. The competition is actually really fierce. Like the people that you're competing with are people who went to like Stanford, MIT, Berkeley, all CS students, right? Like for example, the resumes that we get are all from like top universities. And like even this like past summer, like 2 of our interns were from Stanford and Berkeley, like really smart guys. So that's kind of the competition and the landscape for like entry level, right? Like you have no experience and you're trying to get in. So if let's say that you don't have like schooling, or you're just doing this like as a career change, then it's much more difficult. So you need to do something somewhat extraordinary to like stand out. This is, of course, this is not for like everyone. Like there's definitely exceptions, and there's also people who decide to work for like kind of a smaller startup that will take a chance on you, or like some company that is not as well as established will take a chance on you as well. But I feel like there's more luck involved in that. The more like bulletproof way of getting that like first impression right is having a great portfolio, or doing something that's like stands out. And there's many ways to stand out, and some of them are easier than others. Like for example, a great way to stand out is to be a really prominent like open source contributor. This may be actually really hard to do if you're just starting out, because you don't have like the experience of reading a large code base and all this kind of stuff. So that's actually can be very hard, but it could also be really easy depending on like what kind of tickets or issues you're looking into. And there's definitely people who are really good at it. I'm not one of those people, and that wasn't the strategy that I took. But for me, I use hackathons, and I kind of personally feel that hackathon is probably the best way to like just show off a little bit, because it's just a lot. I made a video on this, but it's actually a lot easier to win a hackathon than you might imagine. There's a bunch of people who has won hackathons by pure luck. For example, I recently won a Nintendo Switch from like a serverless conference. They had a hackathon there, and my company sent me out there to participate in the hackathon for some reason. And my team won, and it was essentially me and another coworker. We were working on it, and this lady who was late to the hackathon because she had ran like a marathon before. It wasn't like a full marathon, but like it was like San Francisco. It was some kind of like San Francisco Beta Breakers. I'm not really sure what it was, but it was some run. Like and then like basically we were a team of 2 and everyone else was like a team of 6, and the judges asked us if she could just participate and just be on our team, and we're like, sure, why not, whatever. And basically I asked her to like, and here's the kicker, she didn't really know how to program. She was just like getting into it, and it was actually more work for us to try to find work for her. But it was okay because we were pretty confident in our skills, and we were chugging along greatly. So I just asked her to find like icons for me to like put into the website. I ended up not using any of the icons actually, but I really appreciated like that she really wanted to do her best and do her part. But we ended up winning like the best prize in the serverless hackathon, and it was great fun. But like like think about that, right? Like this person came late to a conference and they won a hackathon. Like it's like things like that happen all the time at hackathons. Like you could go, you could participate, and find a team there, and you could get lucky as well. So that's like one way to kind of hack the system. The other way is watch my video on how to win a hackathon, and then actually win a hackathon. But yeah, so winning hackathons are really important. Like when I was going to, it's not like you don't have to do it, but like it's a really easy way to boost up your resume. So here's a little side story, but I was pretty deliberate about going to hackathons when I decided to go to my bootcamp, and I knew going in I wanted to win hackathons because I had done a bunch of research, and basically all the arrows pointed to, hey, like if you want to boost up your resume, win a hackathon. Like that's like one of the best ways to do it. So basically I decided to do that, and I got pretty lucky. I mean, I don't really like the word luck, but I got pretty lucky, I would have to say. And the 3 hackathons I went to, my team won all 3 of them. So we won like $20,000 worth of prizes, and that became kind of my mantra and like story when I like reached out to people, and like when people ask me, hey, tell me a little bit about yourself, like that was always like, those are like kind of the key points that I would say. Like, hey, I was an accountant, I became a PM, and I decided that I wanted to become a software engineer because I found myself like programming on the side, like on my free time. And then when I went to a boot camp, I won 3 hackathons while I was at the boot camp, so one of which being TechCrunch Disrupt, and also one that was hosted by Facebook. Our team won about $20,000 worth of prizes, So yeah, I'm really passionate about like programming. So that was kind of like my pitch when I met people. This is kind of go towards the second portion of it, but yeah. So like you're building up your portfolio and like basically making it really easy for you to like talk about what you are working on and what you have done is like a super important step if you want to get into the door. Now the next like tips on this first step is like pretty obvious, is leveraging like your existing network. A lot of people don't know that, like a lot of people don't actually know how many people they know, like, or can know, unless they actually take the effort to try to find out. So like a lot of the referrals that I got was because of existing networks. So I would, basically what I did was, hey, I told a bunch of my friends saying, hey, I'm looking for a job. I'm trying to get into this industry or this job. Do you know anyone? These are some of the companies that I'm looking at. And then someone will randomly be like, hey, I actually have like a cousin who works at Twitch, or I have a cousin who works at like Asana, user testing, or all these like random companies that I was very interested in. And it just turns out I just happened to know a bunch of people who knew these people, and I could get introductions. And so that was like really helpful for me, and that was a huge win for me initially. So I got a bunch of interviews that way. But like, what if you don't have any friends? What if you don't have any good networks, right? Like, what can you do? It's totally fine, because there's meetups, there's LinkedIn, and actually the job that I got at Capital One, I found by getting a referral from someone I met at React Native meetup in San Francisco. So like, it's crazy because I was actually not registered to go to this meetup, and one of my cohorts at the time said, hey, my friend's like hosting a React Native meetup. So I went with them, and then Capital One was hosting it, and there was a guy there, and after he was like, hey, we're hiring it, or hey, we're like hiring a bunch of people, so like let me know. So I basically went up to him after and said, hey, like I gave him my like quick 10-second pitch, and he's like, oh, cool, send me your resume. And basically that's how I landed my job essentially at Capital One. So yeah, so that's kind of like don't fret that you don't have a network now, because you could definitely like this step is all about the grind. Like it's not easy. It's actually one of the hardest parts. And that kind of leads to the next tip. And this is something that I picked up from this career services that I use at my bootcamp. But basically, like, make a Trello board of all the companies that you're interested in. So like you want to be somewhat organized on like your leads. So like treat this like I don't know if any of you guys are like into sales or anything, but like treat this like a sales, like you're working on a sales lead. So like make a Trello board or some kind of like Kanban board. But basically what it is you'll have like a bunch of cards on one side and label them as like companies that you want to work for. You just list them. And then on the next like tab, like column, you'll have like people that you know. Like basically your goal is to find people that you know who work there, or people that like know someone who works at these companies, right? And once you like find them, you move the cards over to that like side, and then you fill out the contact information of these people and how you know them. And then afterwards you have another column that says you've reached out to them, and then another column that says like you guys met and like you sent your referral, and done, right? You finish that process. This is like super helpful because like once you get into the thick of this, like you'll be applying to like hundreds of jobs. It sounds crazy, but that's literally what it kind of takes to get your first job if you don't have any experience. So that's essentially it for like booking the meeting, like getting your portfolio ready and all that stuff. That's all about getting the meeting. But like, what do you do when you're actually at the meeting? Because that's kind of important. The number one tip for this particular step is to never start with, like when you're actually face to face with them, never start with like, hey, like, so I wanted to talk to you about getting the referral. Like that's like going to a date and before you had a chance to get to know them and like have a meal, you're going in for the kiss essentially. So don't ever start with that. That should be obvious, but like you don't really start with that. And like it's weird, but you should kind of treat it like a date-ish kind of feel to it. Like you don't want to sound too like, hey, like I'm the best at this, or like I know all this stuff. Like you don't want to come off that way. You want to come out somewhat humble, but you want to make sure that you're passionate, like make sure that you show like you're passionate about this and you're really excited about this. And this is where like having a good portfolio helps, right? Because you're gonna have to like, because they're gonna like the first question that if you don't know them, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself. Like that's like 99% of the time they'll ask you this question, and then you having like a good like 10 to 15 second like pitch, like kind of the one that I shared, and how your previous experiences and and the choices that you made up to now and all the things that you accomplished now with your like new portfolio, like why is that such an impressive thing and why is that unique? And that's why like one thing that's really important is to like not disregard the things that you've done. Like let's say that you worked at Starbucks for like 7 years and you became all the way to like manager or something. That's very valuable like life experiences, right? And work experiences too. Actually, a lot of people who went to like that kind of route where there's a lot of like dealing with people and like you have a lot of soft skills managing like that kind of work, they actually turn out to do really well once they learn the technical aspect of programming. So basically when you're in this like kind of like conversation with them, you want to just be yourself, but you also have to sell yourself. You have to be very excited about like the company, like do your due diligence in a sense about the company. Like don't just be like, oh, like I want to work with you guys because you guys, I heard you guys pay a lot or something like that. Like don't do that. Like research the tech that they're using. Make sure that aligns with like the ones that you really want to use. Yeah, like do your due diligence about the company, and like, you know, like mention why you're interested in the company, right? No one wants to hire, like try, like put their name out for someone who seems like they don't really care and they're just trying to put their resume into as many places as possible. Even if that's what you're trying to do, like you should never appear that way, right? Because and it's really easy to be just genuine, right? If you're, it's really hard to like lie about all these like things because there's so many things to remember. So if you're really interested in a company, then just be interested in the company, right? Like it sounds kind of like an obvious advice, but you'd be surprised how many people just skip like this kind of step. Also, finally, the thing about these kind of meetings is that you shouldn't expect these people to like really stand up for you in a sense, you know, like they're busy people. They don't like owe you anything, so never take it personal if they say no, they can't refer you, or like for whatever reason like that referral doesn't go through, they forget about it or whatever. Just, you know, let it go, because it's better just trying a different approach, finding another person for that like place, than to like burn a bridge. You know, there's no reason, because this industry is actually really small. And you'll run into those people again, in some form or another. So never burn your bridges. Now the final step is like what to do afterwards, and this kind of goes in line with like not burning the bridges. But basically, once you get the referral, you know, like just tell them, like before you leave the meeting, you just say, hey, I'm gonna send you this stuff. Is that cool? And then they'll usually be like, yeah, just send me your stuff and the job posting or whatever. And then they will have to do like the submission themselves usually. But basically, like I said, people are busy. So you definitely want to follow up if you never get like an email back, but you know, never sound needy or anything like that. So just be like, this is why having a Trello board is so important, because then you could keep track of all of this stuff, right? So like the rule of thumb I like to follow is like the day after, immediately day after, or the same day, you send the meeting that you had with this person, you send them your stuff and then thank them for their time essentially, and then you wait like at least a week, and then you ping them if you haven't got anything. And then if that doesn't happen, you wait another week and then you ping them one more time. And after that, chances are they're not going to refer you. So move on. So that's pretty much it. Doing this process and going through this process is probably going to be one of the most challenging moments of your life. It was really hard for me, and honestly, it wasn't like, I feel a little blessed because it only took me a month to find work. But I know of people who've taken like a year or is still looking after like 2 years to find, you know, get their lucky break. And it's a tough world, like it's a tough industry to get your foot into the door, and that's why I keep stressing like those initial steps, right? Even though it sounds like a lot of work, but it will definitely make this process very like easy. But yeah, so you know, take your time, but you gotta really want it, and it's gonna be grueling and painful. But you know, one thing is, after you're done and you land that first gig, like it'll feel totally worth it. And you're gonna look back and it's gonna be one of those like moments in time where you're like, man, that was a really tough time, but I'm really glad I went through it. So yeah, that's it for me. I hope that was good advice for you guys. Let me know in the comments below if you guys agree, disagree, hate it, like it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.